Okay. Welcome to Meet the Candidate. And my guest for this session is Mike Fagan, who is running for Spokane City Council President. Welcome,
Yes,
Mike.
and thank you so very much for your time today.
Well, you're not a newcomer to the council, but we're going to go through and introduce yourself to the voters.
Oh,
anyway.
you bet. You bet. And again, I appreciate that a lot. Come January, I'm going to turn 60 years old. And I was born into a Navy family, if you will. Initially, looked at stations all the way up north as Adak, Alaska, all the way down south to Imperial Beach, California, right there on the Tijuana American border there, and spent some time overseas as a military dependent.
And that's like the common thread for many Spokane families.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And vast majority of my time was spent growing up in Japan. And while we were there experiencing Japan, I had an opportunity to experience other countries, the Philippines. Not that it's another country, but Guam was a beautiful
I've been to
visit.
Guam. It is kind of a different other country.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. South Korea, and then all parts Japan. The Hokkaido prefecture up north to the main island and some of the smaller islands there. But I spent, again, the vast majority of my childhood growing up in Japan. I experienced both military-based elementary school as well as school out in the civilian community. So yes, I was there in the spring and the summertime with the little black uniform and the white shirt and the bow tie and the little black satchel holding my brightly colored flag walking across the street. Because believe it or not, that was an idea that's been around for a long time as far as street crossing.
The street crossing.
Yeah, you betcha. And we were doing that back in the 60s in Japan. So there you go. My mother is Japanese natural. I am more Japanese than I am white, to be real blunt. My father is from the northernmost corners of, northwesternmost corners of Montana, in the Rexford, Libby, Eureka area where he was born. And he's part Indian. And like I said, I've, to look at my sisters, you definitely know that they were half Japanese. To look at me, though, some people have made guesses, if you will, Hawaiian, Polynesian, things like that. Not a problem. Asian Pacific Islander, and I wear the badge proudly, for sure.
Well, and it gives you a different background, too, having had the experience going to school in two different cultures. Because
Yes.
the on-base culture is different than the civilian culture when you're overseas.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And obviously, this is, elementary school back in the 60s.
Sure.
Okay. Well, my father ended up spending 3 tours in Vietnam, again, from the base there in Japan. And when he retired from the Navy after 20 years as a CB steel worker, and he was at the top of his field there, back in '73, he moved the family back to the United States. And we landed right here in Spokane, Washington.
Just in time for Expo.
Yes, exactly. And we moved in with Grandma initially. Grandma lived in a small house on East Queen, just north of Northtown. And we stayed with her for a couple of months. Dad got his feet, got himself a job as a police officer there at the federal courthouse of all places, right downtown. And he ended up spending another 20-year career with the federal government there through the courthouse.
Does that mean you graduated from high school in Spokane?
I graduated from North Central in '78. Go Indians. The same year, mind you, Ryan Sandberg, Hall of Famer, second baseman, Cubbies. Yeah, buddy. And as far as I remember, guys, that was the only year that we actually got state football, too. So.
Oh, well, so it's been a while.
It's been a while. But I'll tell you, from what I understand, and all the way back in the day when I was in high school through the late 70s at North Central, our track team, killer track team, and it remains killer track team today. Cross country, long distance, those guys just go and go, I tell you. Anyway, graduated from high school, but it was right after the Vietnam War, and Dad sits you down. He asks you, what are you going to do with your life? And I kind of liked what he was doing, police officer. Yeah, I'd go down to the courthouse with him and maybe visit a couple of the places that he was responsible for providing physical security and law enforcement criminal investigation activities at. And it captured my attention. So, it got right down to the road. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to go to college? What are you going to do? I like law enforcement, Dad. Well, son, don't think about law enforcement in the Navy, because everybody in the armed forces goes to the Army. Boom. Right before I graduated, I raised my hand and swore to an oath to defend the Constitution. And I spent 10 years in the military, in the Army. Mm-hmm. I went to my basic training and advanced individual training at Fort McClellan, Alabama, and Anniston, Alabama. I was one of the first co-ed military police basic training and advanced individual training classes to have come together and graduated.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. There was a lot of changes going on.
There was. And, at the time, hey, great. If you want to get in there and help me to dig a foxhole, let's go. If you can shoot, sharpshooter and better downrange, let's go.
Yeah, if you're looking at qualifications, and that's what counts, is can you get the job done?
Can you get the job done? That's it at the end of the day. And, realizing the armed forces is nothing but teamwork, solid teamwork. Mm-hmm. When you get down to the lower echelons and things like that, and that's how we win. And that's how we stay free, and we enjoy liberty, that's for sure. So I did 10 years in the military. Spent a good part of it as a police officer, criminal investigator. I dabbled a little bit in overseas drug suppression, black marketing industry, human trafficking, liquor, makeup, certain types of clothing, electronic devices, stuff like this. And right about the middle of the 80s, when I getting ready to hit my 10th year.
Yeah, that's when everybody has to make a decision.
That's right.
You're going to stick for the 20, or is it time to move on?
That's absolutely right. You must have some military background.
I do have some military family, yeah.
Well, there I was. I came home on leave, extended leave, and I looked for a law enforcement position all over Spokane, Coeur d'Alene. I even went out into eastern Washington, out into the ag communities, and looking for town marshal jobs and things like this. And unfortunately, nobody was hiring. So I ended up trying the Silicon Valley market, which was just 40 miles south of my last duty station, and that was the Presidio of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Right there at the south end of the Golden Gate Bridge.
It's a lovely spot.
It is a lovely spot. I understand they turned it into a movie studio, though. Pixar. I believe is the folks that occupy that now.
Yeah.
But you're right. It was a wonderful base. It was a wide open base. So I'm sure that you can imagine in a law enforcement position there, criminal investigator, I had occasion to see all types of crimes, both serious, minor, that were being committed by both civilians as well as military people. And that was just the nature of the beast there in San Francisco.
So you decided to get out after the 10 and found a position in...
I found a position at a computer manufacturer, and believe it or not, I actually got an opportunity to interview with them in my battle dress uniform, camouflage uniform. They thought I was the cat's meow when it came to military specification and military contracting. Wonderful. I made it a go, and just as it is with me coming back after all those years, I'm bringing the family back to the city of Spokane to raise my kids. I always start out at that bottom ladder rung, and I'm just climbing, all the while that I'm engaged. And that's what I did in Silicon Valley. And I started out at the bottom ladder rung as a junior buyer, administrative buyer, and worked my way up into the corporate head shed in a very short amount of time. Same thing with the military. I'd always been promoted ahead of my peers. I graduated early from law enforcement criminal investigation school and got held back for 60 days to help mentor and ensure that the rest of my classmates got through.
Well, you came back to Spokane, and I think, how long have you been involved in politics here? Because you're not an incumbent for this position, but you have been serving on the city council.
Yes, that is correct. We, my wife Donna and I, we're going to celebrate in July our anniversary, which is very significant because it's 12 years shy of 50, ladies and gentlemen. 12 years shy of 50, 38 years. I like the 12 years shy of 50 because it's got more impact, huh?
It does. You're
and it
getting
makes
close.
you think.
You're getting close.
Yeah, you bet. But my high school sweetheart from North Central, by the way, We got 3 kids. They came up through Bemis, Shaw, and Rogers. When we first got back, we bought a home over here in the Bemis neighborhood, just a couple of blocks down from Gonzaga Prep. And my wife and I kind of dove into the Hilliard, Bemis, Whitman community, and we've been engaged ever since. I've been the president or chair of various councils and community development block grant steering committees and things like this. We, in the last 20 years, have been able to gain such amenities in Hilliard. A $16.2 million facelift of the downtown business core. Market Street, Haven Street, all done utilizing a method of asphalt and construction that we're not doing as a natural course of business here in Spokane. And that's something that I want to change. That is utilizing recyclable glass.
Oh, okay.
Now, I challenge everybody out there, listening, watching, whatever. You travel down Market Street, please, please, just know that those streets have been the same for the last decade. That is a state highway that is traveled every day by fully laden trailer truck traffic.
It does look in pretty good shape.
Okay.
I've done it recently, now that you mention it, but
You bet.
Okay.
Now, there's several reasons. Number one, first and foremost, we laid a layer of recycled crushed glass over the bedrock and the base layer. Why? Glass is non-porous. It does not allow water to seep and penetrate. The reason why we have our potholes, yes, temperature cycling, but understand that where you have cracks in the road, it allows water to seep. When water and dirt get together, what happens? It liquefies. Look up liquefaction, people, please. This is what's going on with our streets. In the past, we really didn't have a whole lot of maintenance mindset, but over the last 5 years, with a little bit of behind-the-scenes pounding, we have been able to encourage city staff to set aside more money every year for things like slurry sealing. You got to seal the cracks. If you don't seal the cracks, those cracks are going to turn into holes, potholes, big, ugly ones. Okay? And what does that do? That impacts your quality of life because it takes time away from you when you break an axle, blow a tire, whatever. It's good for business in town, but that's not what being an elected rep is all about.
Well, you've been in a basic council position, but this is council president. Could you tell people a
You
little bit
Okay.
about what the difference is? What are the duties of the president that are different from
You betcha. The president is going to be the guy that is hovering at the 30,000 foot level, as well as the sub 5,000 foot level. Okay? As a district level council person, okay, just know, folks, it takes 4 people to make anything in the city go. 4 council votes. You got to have 4 votes or nothing goes. Nothing moves. You can talk about it all day long, but it don't go unless you get 4. There are obviously other ways to skin the cat, so to speak, but as a council president, my primary responsibility is to ensure that we are meeting our OPMA requirements on meeting notices, agenda publications, a lot of the administrative stuff that at the council district level, you're not really knowledgeable of, you're not really concerned about. Because you're an active player, you're an active voter, you come to the meeting, you're dealing from an agenda. It is the council president's prime responsibility to ensure that all of those administrative legal requirements are met and sated. We want to also make sure that all of our council members are qualified to be council members. And what I mean by that is the bare bones of what the charter requires. Your residency requirements, your voter requirement, this kind of stuff. When I say I'm at the 30,000 foot level, I've had my hands on for almost 2 terms as a district level council person, my hands on those issues that affect your quality of life directly. I'm the guy that GU political newspaper has dubbed the constituents councilman, and they did that for a reason. And I'm not an I, me, my guy. Please don't get that.
Well, when you're a candidate, you have permission to be an I, me, my. You kind of have to. So.
Yeah, but just know it feels weird because
Yes, it
I've
does.
had to engage my colleagues as a team player. And we can do that. We can play as a team, we can play as an individual. But it just feels weird. That's it. That's all.
Yeah.
But just know at the end of the day, I kind of feel like I've really had them wings pinned behind my back. I've felt that pressure of being held under the thumb, because what I would like to propose, what I have proposed, it just isn't part of the majority's agenda. Okay? Clearly, folks, I did not come to Spokane City Council to change Spokane. I like Spokane the way it was when I grew up in the 70s. But I realize and I accept the fact that we've grown by almost 50,000 people in the city limits since then. So it's going to be a lot more crowded. We got to get a bit smarter on what it is that we're doing with regard to how people are moving around in town. Is anybody at City Hall looking at, here's the 30,000 foot level, Council President responsibility, is anybody looking at truck routes for the commercial aspects of our city? Once that north-south corridor's concrete gets laid on the ground, when we hit Wellesley, when we hit Euclid, when we hit Trent, when we hit those are going to be milestones and dominoes that fall. And we need to be ready with our traffic patterns, because at the end of the day, with the onset of that north-south freeway, maintenance is going to become a lot less burdensome.
On the surface routes off the exits. So,
Absolutely. There's been talk going on in the background. Do we make all of our school zones and parks 20-mile-an-hour zones? Okay, currently, no, we couldn't do something like that. It'd be extremely expensive. But what would happen if the vehicular travel routes in the city of Spokane calm down enough, and we can look out into the future utilizing traffic modeling and things to this effect that we're already using now to help us make determinations like that.
You've kind of almost hit that last question. I give you that 30 seconds to a minute to give your wrap-up elevator speech. Why should people vote for Mike Fagan for City Council President?
Oh, you bet. Well, here is the deal. The reality, ladies and gentlemen, the things that we're not talking about here. I believe that Spokane is ready for conservative values. We have seen compassion, and believe me, everybody that I know is compassionate. I am as compassionate as everybody else. Fact of the matter is compassion as the highest virtue with no expectation, etc., it's not getting us anywhere. I want a city that's compassionate, but is compassionate, that is going to have some accountability involved, that's going to have things like this, that's going to be effective in what we're doing, okay? I have been a servant leader up to this particular point. I'm going to flip that when I become the council president, and I'm now going to go into a leader-servant mode, just as the council president should. Council president is the deputy mayor or the mayor pro tem. And a lot of people don't realize that. So I am just as much the face of the city of Spokane as whoever is going to be the mayor. I will never, ever, never, ever do anything to embarrass the city of Spokane. I love this city. I grew up here. I left here. I came back here to raise my family. And I want to do things that are going to keep my kids here, my grandkids here. I know every politician says that, but man, we just got to keep hitting the side of that battleship until we can get her to list, don't we?
Hey. Well, Mike, I thank you for taking time to come in
Thank
today.
you.
I know you were busy, and
Boy.
glad to have you here.
Yes.